afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alissa, Coram, and Ed Carson here. And Ed, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick rundown of what we're going to be talking about today? Oh, he's muted. Hold that thought. He was saying something miraculous.
It was amazing. As Mike Webster says on IBD Live, my best stuff is always on mute.
Yeah.
Chip equipment maker Asml convincingly broke out today. One of several chip stocks to clear a buy point, but this one was the one that really showed strength. Meanwhile, Google is searching for a buy point, coming just a hair within that breakout. Meanwhile, Splunk, a database and cybersecurity software maker, that stock broke out, but it's just ahead of earnings. So it came on a very strong day for the market with the major indexes all closing relatively close to highs.
Yeah, that's right. So let's take a look at the chart of the NASDAQ here. Ed, you mentioned we did close off of session highs, but still with strong gains. The NASDAQ up over 2%, the Dow up 1.5%, the S&P 500 up 1.7%. And by the look of this chart here, we've now almost essentially erased the vast majority of the gains that we saw, the vast majority of the losses that we saw during the crash.
It's pretty incredible. And today was just another, yesterday's sell-off into the close wasn't great, but we were rebounded. Right. We're almost all the way back on the NASDAQ. It is amazing. We're starting to fill in that last gap that we had when things started to go down. The S&P 500, it's nearing the 200-day line. Its 50-day line is turned up. The NASDAQ has already turned up for several days. There's just a powerful trend here. And, if you want to say that you think that the market is going too fast, too furious, well, you just got to listen to the market. When the market's going down, you have to listen to that. When the market's going up, you have to listen to that. And right now, the market's going up. Growth stocks are leading. A lot of stocks are going very well.
Right. And just another reason why you really need to set aside those preconceived notions that you have. And as you mentioned, really listen to the market. And that's what we've done, which, we had a follow through day on the NASDAQ here on, if my cursor will cooperate, on April 6th and even sooner for the S&P 500. And we've just been able to really take advantage of this super strong rally that we've been seeing. And we're going to continue to listen to the market and look at breakouts that present themselves. So speaking of Asml, a nice breakout here today, a gap up for the stock up 6.3%. And we've been talking about Asml because it tried to, clear this handle area, now convincingly above the handle and at new all-time highs today.
Yes, the buy point is really 306, sort of at the top of that sort of handle area. Going above the old high is nice. As you can see with the RS line, it's got that blue dot showing that it was at new highs while still in the base. But the RS line has been a real leader for a while. Asml was one of the first chip stocks to break out, in 2019, coming back. And while the numbers sometimes are lumpy, it's a strong grower. Yeah, it's on a weekly chart. You can see it's been outperforming actually for quite a while when a lot of other stocks struggled in 2019. The volume wasn't that great on today, but that's been an issue with a lot of breakouts lately, and it was a nice price action, certainly.
Yeah, and it remains, at least by looking at, if you're using the buy point from the weekly chart, still in that buy range, maybe a little extended now if you're using the handle.
Probably a little extended, may pull back. If it also settles here and consolidates around the old highs, that could provide an area to jump in. But there were a lot of stocks to clear buy points, but either they were not real leaders or they just nudged above the buy point. It was nice to see those other chip stocks move, but this is the one that really looked impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, moving on, let's take a look at Google. We see a cup with handle forming here and a gain today of 2.5% for the tech giant. So good to see Google edging towards a new buy point here.
Yeah, it's been doing well here. I think people are hoping that advertising comes back. People are using Google just like they've been using Facebook a lot while they're stuck at home. The relative strength line has been doing pretty well in the last few months. Several times, including last week, it was a blue dot like we saw with Asml, backed up a little bit, but very near highs. I think the concern with Google is that it hasn't been a real leader over time. Like if you looked on a weekly chart, you'd see that, well, it really doesn't it hasn't really outperformed that much, or it's been a little messy at times. And so that's been a concern, but it's been leading. It's been leading in recent months, so it's definitely one to keep an eye at. Mike Webster on IBD Live often says, you have some high flyers out there, the ones that you think might really surge, but also could tank. This one's a little bit safer. Obviously, it had a huge drop, but you might think this is a safe place to park your money, or something that where you might get some gains, but also won't have quite the volatility.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a very good point. And, looking at the fundamentals, sales growth remains strong. We've seen weakening earnings for a lot of different companies in a lot of different industries, but it does look like earnings are expected to rebound nicely next year. So definitely something else to consider when you're conducting that fundamental analysis. Now, last but not least, let's take a look at Splunk, ticker SPLK, in the database software industry group. Now, we know that a lot of leading growth names that have seen compelling moves over the last couple of weeks and during this rally have come from the software group, and we're now seeing Splunk edging above a buy point ahead of its earnings report, as you mentioned at the top of the show, tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's always a concern. And Splunk you can see how volatile this stock is. You can just imagine how volatile it might be on earnings. I mean, technically, you could possibly buy an option, ahead of earnings if you were to buy it. But chances are a stock that's this volatile would have a pretty expensive option. I didn't look it up, but I can imagine that you would have to pay a pretty high premium on it. So you could buy the earnings gap if it jumped up. But the issue is with this stock, it's really always wide and loose. And while the numbers are often has decent growth, it can be lumpy. And I guess there's a big drop expected, but then a rebound. The real issue is that it's had a lot of failed breakouts. Even if you look, okay, if you held it over time and held, just closed your eyes and held it for 2 or 3 years, you'd be up. But yeah, a lot of places where it breaks out and then relatively quickly it fails. And so you have to be, remembering that you probably want to size, if you did buy this in some way, you probably want to size your position. And I guess one more point is that on a weekly chart, you don't see a handle. So it'd be hard, probably
Yeah.
not too many people were shaken out of this with that handle, even though it was there on a daily. It probably, did it shake out too many people? I don't know. So just some concerns about that, but definitely one to watch tomorrow night.
All right. And, if we do happen to see an earnings gap, I'm sure we will be discussing that action Friday morning on IBD Live. Even though earnings season has wound down a little bit, that doesn't mean that we're not still seeing breakouts, because we are, and also seeing follow-on buying opportunities for the stocks that we did see have those big earnings gaps, like Chegg and PayPal, for example. So, it's something new every day, but there's definitely been plenty to talk about on IBD Live lately, hasn't there, Ed?
Oh, absolutely. And I just, Apple is almost at a buy point in addition to Google. We're just, paying close attention to these, and users are saying, hey, look at this stock. It's breaking out. It's breaking out. And we're, it's a great environment to be looking at these stocks as they're happening, but then having sort of a nice analysis and back and forth discussing them.
Yes, and if you haven't checked it out already, we encourage you to do so. It's our morning live stream where we're sharing our screens for the first hour plus of trade. So check it out at investors.com/IBD Live. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Remember that these discussions are for informational and educational purposes only, so make sure to do your own research. But that is it for us for today, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.